Okay, picture this. What would happen if you woke up tomorrow and Earth had suddenly stopped spinning? I mean, it sounds totally impossible, right? But our planet is currently rotating at nearly 1,670 kilometers per hour. And if that motion stopped instantly, the consequences would be literally beyond imagination. Welcome back to Last Human Era. In today's explainer, we're going to dive into this massive what-if scenario that reveals just how fragile our existence really is. Because a single change in our planet's motion could transform our thriving home into a place where survival becomes humanity's absolute greatest challenge. So right now, as you're sitting there taking in this explainer, you probably feel perfectly still, don't you? But actually, scratch that. You are currently hurtling through space. If you're near the equator, you're traveling at a staggering speed of about 1,670 kilometers per hour. The crazy part is we don't feel a thing. And that's because absolutely everything around us, the air, the oceans, the ground, it's all spinning together in this continuous, massive motion. And it's been doing that for 4.5 billion years. To put that into perspective, think about riding in a car. If you're cruising along the highway at 70 miles per hour, your body is moving at that exact same speed. If the driver suddenly slams on the brakes and hits a wall, the car stops. But your body, it wants to keep moving forward at 70 miles per hour. That's exactly why we wear seatbelts. Now, scale that concept up to the entire planet. If the Earth's solid ground suddenly locked into place, everything not firmly attached to the ground, including buildings, oceans, and even people, would just keep moving eastward at incredible speeds, up to 1,670 kilometers per hour. This brings us to the first terrifying seconds, creating global destruction within minutes. The atmosphere wouldn't just stop with the ground. That means massive, supersonic winds, way stronger than any hurricane ever recorded, would instantly sweep across continents. Buildings, trees, soil, people, just swept away. Entire cities could disappear in a matter of hours. The oceans, carrying all that massive momentum, would surge eastward, creating gigantic tsunamis that would race across the planet and send apocalyptic walls of water miles inland. And because the rotation is fastest near the equator, anyone living between 42 degrees north and 42 degrees south, which is like 85% of the global population, would bear the absolute worst of this initial shockwave. But before we continue into the atmospheric chaos, if you're enjoying these mind-bending future scenarios, make sure to like this explainer, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Last Human Era for more incredible journeys into the unknown. Okay, so back to the chaos. The devastation wouldn't just stop at the surface. Our incredibly complex climate systems would instantly shatter. You see, the Earth's rotation creates what's called the Coriolis effect. It's basically what makes moving air curve, giving us our trade winds, jet streams, and those spiraling storms. Without rotation, the Coriolis effect vanishes completely. Hurricanes would literally cease to form. Instead of the intricate global weather patterns that distribute our moisture and heat, the weather would just simplify into these basic, brutal loops. Hot air would rise at the equator, travel in a straight line to the poles, cool down, and flow straight back. Period. And while the atmosphere is raging out of control, our modern technological world would completely go dark. Global tech as we know it would just fail. Think about it. GPS systems rely on incredibly precise calculations that are specifically calibrated for a rotating planet. Within hours, they'd be entirely useless. Satellites and ground stations would lose their synchronization. And without the Earth's rotation powering our magnetic field, our power grids and communication networks would be violently exposed to cosmic radiation. We're talking total cascading electronic failures. Okay, take a breath for a second. Imagine you were lucky enough to be in some deep underground bunker at the poles, or you somehow miraculously survived that catastrophic first day. What exactly are you waking up to? What does life actually look like on a stationary Earth? Well, welcome to your incredibly bizarre new reality. The day-night cycle we depend on would be completely altered. Because the Earth is still orbiting the sun, a single day would now stretch out for an entire year. The sun wouldn't streak across the sky anymore, it would just hover there. As the days pass, one side of Earth would face constant sunlight for 6 straight months, while the other half of the globe remains trapped in freezing, endless darkness. And what's truly terrifying to consider is the absolute harshness of that dark side. Without any solar heat to warm the surface, temperatures would plummet way, way below our current winter extremes, causing temperatures to become literally deadly. Over just a few decades, massive, thick sheets of ice would build up, making the dark hemisphere almost completely uninhabitable for the vast majority of plant and animal life. But let's say you could somehow stay warm. There is still a profound psychological toll to living in endless darkness. We actually have real-world data on this from military personnel stationed in regions that experience polar nights. a total lack of sunlight severely disrupts the brain chemicals that regulate our mood, our energy, and our sleep. Survivors would be battling constant feelings of sadness, chronic fatigue, a deep sense of detachment, and intense cravings for carbohydrates. Why? Because their bodies would be desperately searching for energy and comfort in the middle of this endless black. On the flip side, things really aren't much easier for anyone stuck in the 6-month daylight zone. Way too much sun causes massive sleep disturbances, hyperactivity, and extreme irritability. People would have to strictly enforce their daily routines. I'm talking installing heavily blacked out drapes, wearing sleep masks, and practicing deep relaxation techniques just to force their brains to shut down and rest while the sun is relentlessly beating down outside. So if the day side is basically an oven and the night side is a massive freezer, where on Earth do we go? The answer is a place called the Terminator. No, not the cyborg. The Terminator Zone is this narrow, potentially livable band of twilight separating the hot side from the cold side. This shifting ring around the planet would likely be the only place with temperatures mild enough to support human life. But even here, it would be battered by constant fierce winds caused by the extreme temperature differences on either side. Global agriculture as we know it would totally collapse, ecosystems would fiercely struggle to survive, and humanity would be forced to adapt to a world completely unlike anything we've ever known. Now let's zoom out for a second and look at the macro scale, because the devastation definitely doesn't end after that first year. Scientists might search desperately for ways to save civilization, but even if humans survive, life on Earth would never be the same again. Over decades, the very physical shape of our world changes. The oceans literally migrate. Over centuries, the Earth's internal dynamo would grind to a halt, collapsing the magnetic field that protects us from space. And in deep time, without that magnetic shield, solar winds would literally strip our atmosphere right away into the void. So why exactly do those oceans move in the first place? Well, our Earth is not a perfect sphere. It's what's called an oblate spheroid. Because it spins, centrifugal force causes the planet and its oceans to bulge out right at the equator. But without that spin, the centrifugal force is totally gone. Gravity suddenly becomes the only boss in town. The oceans that are currently held around the equator by rotation would immediately start flowing north and south toward the poles, where gravity is strongest. And this paints a crazy picture of how our global map would be completely redrawn. As the waters rush toward the poles, the Arctic Ocean would expand massively. We're talking drowning northern Canada, Europe, and Siberia. Down south, Antarctica would end up entirely underwater. But as the water actually leaves the equator, the ocean floors there would dry up. Over time, this creates one massive, continuous megacontinent wrapping right around the middle of the Earth. Ultimately, a stopped Earth faces two very grim cosmic fates, and they're pretty similar to our planetary neighbors. On one hand, it might suffer a Mars-like fate. Without our rotating core generating that magnetic field, solar winds would just blast our atmosphere into space, leaving behind a barren, radiated rock. Or, on the other hand, we could face a Venus-like fate. The massive internal friction of the Earth's layers suddenly grinding to a halt could generate so much heat that it literally boils the remaining oceans, creating a dense, super toxic greenhouse atmosphere. But hold on, there is actually a wild silver lining here. If this incredible scenario happened, our faithful companion, the moon, might actually try to save us. Right now, Earth's rapid spin is constantly pushing the moon a tiny bit further away every single year. But if Earth stops spinning, the moon's gravity would drag against our oceans and rock. It would slowly drift closer to us. And over millions of years, the moon's tidal pole would act like a giant cosmic crank, slowly transferring its orbital energy right back into the Earth, essentially coaxing our planet to spin once again. All right, let's step back into reality for a moment. Physics dictates that the Earth cannot just suddenly stop on a dime. But what's absolutely fascinating is that the Earth actually is slowing down. It's happening infinitesimally, and it's driven by those exact same tidal interactions with the moon that we just talked about. Over billions of years, our days are getting slightly longer, and our planet's geometry is very, very slowly becoming more spherical as that equatorial bulge subtly relaxes. And we know this for a fact because we actually have to correct our clocks to account for it. Between 1972 and 2020, scientists had to add 28 leap seconds to official atomic time just to keep up with this gradual slowing of our planet's rotation. We are literally constantly adjusting our modern technology to stay perfectly in sync with a slowing Earth. If these future possibilities fascinate you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because every week we explore the most incredible futures humanity may face. The next time you watch a sunrise, or check your GPS, or honestly even just stand still in your living room, remember the monumental invisible engine running right beneath your feet. We are riding a giant spaceship, moving at over 1,000 kilometers per hour, and it's the very reason life as we know it can exist. In the end, a single change in our planet's motion could transform the world from a thriving home into a place where survival becomes humanity's greatest challenge. So I'll leave you with this. If you knew Earth would stop spinning tomorrow, what would be the very first thing you do? Let me know your survival plans in the comments.